Well, it may be the holiday season, but some people are hoping Santa will bring them a whole bunch new Republican members of Congress. One of those people is Randy Purham. He's a friend of mine. He's had me on his podcast, and I enjoy chatting with Randy. He has unique perspectives. He's a very active Republican in the state of Texas. Now, Randy, Texas has got 38 congressional seats. Only five of them are Democratic. Does that represent the general population divisions in Texas? Do you think they're equally divided, Republican and Democrat, according to ideology and party affiliation?
Largely, yes, and I say that because a majority of the, I guess you say, the Democrat populations are urban centered, and so they're already coalesced in areas such as Austin, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio areas. So those areas have the representation that they're looking to have. And first off, thank you, John, for having me on. I appreciate you.
We're delighted to have you, Randy, and it's always good to talk to you. Well, California has vowed to redistrict. They've got
Hmm.
40%, get this, 40% of California are registered Republicans. Guess how many seats they've got in Congress?
I
17% of their congressional seats are Republican.
mm,
40% of the population, 17% of the districts. It's 43 Democrats, 9 Republicans in California. You know, I say
hmm
bears make money, bulls make money, hogs get slaughtered. They want more of those 9 seats. How are they going to get additional seats when Republicans are not fairly represented as it is?
That's very true. And the problem is that California, along with Illinois, they're so gerrymandered that the only thing they can do is just move the lines, east or west or north or south by a couple of blocks just to justify, trying to capture an additional voting population that essentially may not vote anyways. So that's the only way that they'll be able to really get away with this. But overall, cutting out Republicans out of California is only shooting themselves in the foot because when the legislature changes over, they can just change the maps right back to to make it more favorable for Republicans to give that proper representation. But until then, I guess we just have to see what happens with that out there.
Well, right now, the Republicans in the U.S. Congress only have a 7 vote lead.
Hmm.
Come January the 5th, that's going to be trimmed to 6 unless a Republican can win a special election in Georgia to fill the seat of Marjorie Taylor Greene, who resigned in a huff. What do you make of that, by the way? Do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene betrayed the Republican Party by resigning her seat in Congress? She had been one of the most outspoken
Yeah.
and loyal backers of President Trump. She didn't like the fact that Trump was waffling on the release of the Epstein files. So they got into a
Hmm.
verbal spat on X, and Trump called her a traitor. Well, I think that some people interpreted that to be a traitor as in a violation of our federal laws. I think he meant it as a
Yeah.
traitor towards him.
Him.
It
Yeah.
just a political traitor. Well, I'm sorry,
Correct.
that's not illegal. But a lot
Right.
of people thought that he was accusing her of being like siding with our adversaries kind of traitor. I don't think that was it. But she got mad, and he said that he was going to primary her. He was going to find somebody that would be loyal to him and the Republican Party. So her response to that was, "I quit. I'm taking my
Hmm.
toys and going home." I know
Yep.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is not a nice person. I do not like her, but I like her message, and I like her chutzpah,
Hmm.
and I like her strength
Yeah.
as a person to stand up to the establishment. Those things I like. She's just not a very nice person at the end of the day, but that's beside the point,
Hmm.
really. I mean, you have any insight?
I would say, something tells me that there is a little bit more to her resignation than just a spat because there's a lot of people that attack Marjorie Taylor Greene. and she doesn't take her ball and go home. So I think there's a little bit more to it.
You think she didn't get invited to the White House Christmas party, maybe?
No, I don't think it was that either. I think it's more dealing with the insider trading with the stocks. With the crackdown of that going on, a lot of
Oh,
a lot of members, if you look at it, a lot of
she
members
can
of
no longer
Congress
afford to be
for
in
yeah, it's
Congress.
on Congress exactly. It's not lucrative.
Well, so what do you think of it? You ran for Congress.
Hmm.
What do you think about a law prohibiting congressmen and women from trading in stocks?
I'm all for it. They shouldn't be doing that anyway. That's I would say, I'm not gonna say unfair, but it's unfair. Why would you? How would you be in a position to know ahead of time what the markets would do and everything else to capitalize on that as a servant, as a public servant? You're already making, what, $174,000 a year, doing essentially nothing but sit in the office or sit on the floor arguing back and forth all day. Pay me to do that, I could, and I'll be happy with $174,000 a year doing that without any extra perks and all of that. So no, I don't think members of Congress or members of the Senate or whoever, no member of government, let me put it like that, should be allowed to trade stocks based on insider information. That's just it's
Okay,
just it's just wrong.
well, let me interrupt you just for a second, Randy,
Hmm.
because the fact of the matter is, you can't trade on inside information. I can't trade on inside
That's
information.
true.
No one can trade on
No
inside
one.
information. So,
Hmm.
why do we need a new law to prohibit congresspeople from trading in stocks? Now, I really flirted with the idea of running for Congress in South Florida.
Yeah.
I guess I pretty much decided not to. It's a real crowded field, and
Hmm.
there's some good people in the race. But I would not be willing to sell my stocks and forego well, I wouldn't forego my savings, but just cash in
Yeah.
order to be a member of Congress. I just think that's fundamentally wrong.
Hmm.
Um, so how do you balance those competing interests? And couldn't we just enforce the laws that we already have rather than passing a new law so they can find a loophole around those?
Yes. The balance would be, number one, you are prohibited. You're right. From engaging in stock buying. So when you go to apply, or not apply, but when you go to file to run for Congress, you have to disclose that information. So the
Yeah.
information that you disclose, saying that you own stocks at XYZ, from there should be an oversight to say, okay, his or her portfolio hasn't moved during a time, or you're just not able to buy, while you're in Congress, while you're serving. So your portfolio essentially is frozen while you're serving. And then once you leave Congress, you can go back to doing what you were doing with your portfolio, and all is good. But that's how I see the balance in that is you give that disclosure, you let the public know. It should be public record anyways at that juncture in your life that hey, this is what I currently own before going to Congress. So if you see one or two stocks shift here and there, that's not me. That's the market doing this thing, and let it be that. So that I think that'll be a fair balance for that. But absolutely, the enforcement laws that we currently have, and you won't have to worry about insider trading. You won't have to worry about people in Congress, breaking the laws because they think they're already above the law, and these exemptions that they have should not apply. Those should be actually repealed, in my opinion.
There are some very wealthy members of Congress today who were not that wealthy when they went in.
Hmm.
Nancy Pelosi's stock trades make her the most successful stock trader in America today.
Yep.
She outranks Warren Buffett in her trading. She's worth like $450 million.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think Marjorie Taylor Greene, if I'm not mistaken, Anthony, can you pull her up and see how much uh, she has profited by being in Congress? My recollection is that she's amassed 25 or 30 million, but I could be mistaken. Let's speak factually before I get myself in trouble here.
And with Marjorie Taylor Greene being resigning from Congress, she resigned just in time, just on the day where she's eligible to receive a pension still. So
Yes.
it was ill timed, or I should say perfectly timed on her part. So I think there's more to it than just a little spat between her and President Trump. So,
Well, I
but
think
that.
she may have wanted to run for uh, governor or U.S. senator.
Mm-hmm.
from Georgia. I think she was rebuffed on that
Yep.
pretty uniformly. And so maybe she's just got her panties in a wad over
Yeah,
people
I agree.
losing favor with her. What'd you come up with there, Sir Anthony? She started with 630,000, and today's total is, huh? Between 3 and 4 million. Well, that's not just completely outlandish. I think that's in the realm of possibility of just being a good stock picker.
Yeah. Aside from 174,000 salary, and I believe she runs a small business in Georgia there, which I don't think is generating $1 million a year. But okay, it's like where's the rest of the money coming from?
Maybe it was Elon Omar that had accumulated a pretty sizable nest egg. And,
I
this is a
believe that.
person who came here from a foreign country.
Hmm.
Um, I believe she is Muslim, if I'm not mistaken.
She is.
And all she does is bash the United States.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, she has amassed a small fortune after having married her brother.
Yep.
Um, what's wrong with these people? But she did that to get around the immigration laws.
Correct. Yep.
So,
Yep.
um, what's the lay of the land in Texas right now? I don't know that any state has been as hard hit by illegal immigration as Texas. What's the current status, and are they rounding them up and sending them home? What do you see?
In most parts of Texas, yes, but I'm here in Austin, Texas, and it is a quasi sanctuary city, meaning that they don't advertise it as a sanctuary city, but it's a sanctuary city. So because of the way of the law enforcement is really laxed on a lot of things here, so at the initial outset of the deportation operations, we did have ICE here in Austin, and they did round up a bunch and got them out. Matter of fact, where I live at in apartment complexes, they in this area, I'm a precinct chair as well. So you see like a series of vacancies that happened all of a sudden, over that course of 2 months that they were here. And next thing you know, they just stopped coming around. The protests at the Capitol and the protests in the city. Kicking, trying to get ICE out of the area and everything else. Because I am in a very predominantly heavy Hispanic area as well of Austin, East Austin, and so there's a lot of that, but just overall in Texas, South Texas, you saw some activity. The border was closed. I went down to the border a few months ago just to kind of like get a comparison and contrast of what it looks like now compared to when I was down there last year. And I would say night and day, completely quiet. It was like a ghost town, and it was a very very interesting take to see how it looked when the border was open and how it looks now. It was literally just a patrol vehicle just roaming up and down the road. That was it. So I think it was effective in terms of the deportation operations. It was effective. I think there's more that could be done. There's some different angles, or I should say, different tactics that could be taken to help identify uh, the illegals that remain here. But that may be something the DHS is looking at to implement later on in the new year.
So Trump is really he's struggling a bit right now
Yeah.
in the polls.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree.
A lot of his support is waning. I had a conversation just this week with a good friend of mine who is very conservative and also very savvy and a smart guy. And he said, Trump, this immigration stuff is killing him. I said, what do you mean? He got elected on the premise that he was going to stop the influx of illegals into our country and clean up the immigration that Biden uh, just absolutely unleashed into our country. It was
Mm-hmm.
shameful what that administration did. He said, but there's a difference between rounding up the robbers, the murderers, the rapists. But just here in South Florida this week, the general manager of Beach Restaurant, which is a national chain of Italian restaurants, they're all over the country,
Mm-hmm.
had worked at that restaurant for 20 years. He got caught up in an ICE raid. They locked him up. They put him in shackles. They drug him to Alligator Alcatraz, and he is eating food off of a cardboard box on the cement floor in Alligator Alcatraz. And look, I'm a huge Trump supporter. I love President Trump, but he's not helping himself right now.
Yeah.
We were first going to round up the rapers, the robbers, and the bad guys and get them out of here. No complaint whatsoever.
Hmm.
Get them the hell out. Um, so I have just advocated, and I know this is tricky, but the president should
Yeah.
have listened to me on this because I've been saying it for a year. He has a unique opportunity to turn the tables on the Democrats. Instead of saying we're going to round up and deport every single illegal alien, he could take those COVID vaccination centers that we had all over the country. Remember those where you went to jab?
Yes.
And turn
Yes.
those into immigration clearing facilities.
Yes.
Every illegal could go there, fill out a form, give them the correct address and other identifying information from their country of origin, have a process by which we stack rank people. All right, so you've been here 20 years, you've got a good high paying job, you have not violated the laws of this country, and you have a wife and
Hmm.
family here. We're going to put you in category A. All right, you, sir, you've been here 12 months. You came in December of last year under the Biden open door policy. Yeah, you're working. You haven't violated our laws, but I'm sorry. You go to the back of the line. You got to go home, go file your registration.
Hmm.
But there should
Yep.
be degrees of
I
doing
agree.
this. Now,
Yes.
if you gave people a pathway, not to citizenship, but to legal residence in our country, and what we're going to do is prioritize those people that have a job in an industry that is dependent upon
Hmm.
them. Construction, hotels, restaurants, go down the list, you name them, agriculture,
Hmm.
um, and who I guess you'd give them credit for having avoided deportation the longest. And you get them a
Yeah.
social
Yeah.
security card, you get them a temporary work permit, and the legislators can decide the duration of that. Maybe it's 1 year,
Hmm.
maybe it's two, maybe it's three, maybe it's five, and then you have to report back to that facility 6 months prior to the expiration to try and renew it.
Yeah.
Now, if you've turned into a bad guy, you're out of here.
Out of
Do
here.
not pass
Exactly.
go, do not collect $500. But if you've been a good citizen, you paid your taxes, you haven't violated the laws, and if you go to church on Sunday, we're going to let you stay. What is the matter with that? Then,
Mm.
what do we do about voting? Do those people get to vote?
No.
No, I agree. They
No.
cannot vote
No.
under any circumstances.
Not even the local elections. Like a lot of these sanctuary cities are trying to pass laws on that. They're saying that, well, they can't vote at the federal level, but we can let them vote in our state, our local laws, local elections. I'm in disagreement with that because it's like that they don't have the pedigree of knowledge or investment into our communities to have a voice or to have a vote.
We
You
got
know,
this sticky little problem that's called the United States Constitution,
Constitution,
and it
that too.
only
Exactly.
extends the franchise to citizens of the
Hmm.
United States. So, what are we even
Absolutely.
talking about? And so, these
Absolutely. Yeah.
Democrats are committing a fraud on the country by
Hmm.
registering these people and allowing them to vote. But
Yep.
if you identified who they are and you get them to sign a contract, and one of the terms of the contract would be, you want to stay here? Great. Welcome. You agree you will not register to vote. And if you do, it's automatic out of here.
Yeah.
Now,
Felony.
that's the Gordon plan. I think it's brilliant because
Hmm.
I thought of it all by my
Yeah.
lonesome. I really did.
Now, how would you, John? How would you negate the driver license issue? Because they all they have to do is show up to a polling location with an ID to vote. That's
Well, we're
you
going to
know.
give them a special driver's license, and it's either going to be I don't know, purple. It's going to, it's not going to be
Identify, yeah.
your normal driver's license, and that
Yeah.
automatically excludes you from being able to register to vote. It is brilliant, but look what it would do for President Trump. It
Hmm.
would make him a hero to 18 million people. And we shouldn't have 18. We should have the exact number that our economy absolutely requires. Because I can tell you, I'm building a house down here in South Florida, and if it weren't for Hispanics that have worked on our house, we would not have a house. We can't. We just
Hmm.
could not find the labor. I mean, I tried to build my own crew. I couldn't do it, so we ended up relying on subcontractors, and it's not my job to police their employees. But I suspect that maybe they're not all authorized to work in this country, just like the ones next door and the ones up the street and around the corner and in the restaurant that waited on me last night and in the car
Yep.
wash that uh, helps
Exactly.
me
Yeah.
when I get my car cleaned. I mean, but you could turn. Look, here's where I'm going with this. We have to turn down the heat. This country is simmering and it's about to boil. And
Hmm.
I think Trump has a lot to do with it. His vitriol, and again, my listeners, write me, johngordontruth@gmail.com. Bring it. But I'm going to tell you the damn truth. I call balls and strikes. I'm not here to cheerlead for Trump or for anybody,
Hmm.
but I will tell
Hmm.
you what I think. I think Trump has done a phenomenal job of being the president of our country. I think he has worked his ass off tirelessly for a year plus the 4 years he was before he did the same and got and produced great results. But he's got this component of his personality. And I have told his people, and I'll tell them again, if he could move just a little bit, you don't have to
Hmm.
turn this ship 180 degrees, turn it 10 degrees and just try and emulate Ronald Reagan for a day. I think people
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
flock to him. But going after
Makes
Rob
sense.
Reiner after his own son slit his throat and saying it was because of Trump derangement syndrome that he stoked those flames in America.
Hmm. Yeah, that was uncalled for. Yeah. It was best to just stay silent. Yeah. That was best just to stay silent on that one. And you can, in your little small circles, you can say whatever you want about that. But to blast that out, just literally hours after that happened, that was kind of like, okay, that was bad time, Trump. That president,
It's not presidential.
it's not. It's not.
So
I
to
agree there.
one
I
of
agree.
his top
Yeah.
people, I said 3 years ago, I said, look, Trump is awesome. I said, you've got his ear. I didn't like much of anything that George Herbert Walker Bush did. Read
Hmm.
my lips, no new taxes. But the one thing he did say that I really did like, he said, we need a kinder, gentler nation. And I said to that person, I said, do you think that you could get President Trump to reformulate that notion into his own words and champion that cause? And then start behaving in ways that would encourage people to do just that. Not having a one size fits all
Hmm.
deportation policy is a great place to start. Because I can tell you, in Palm Beach, Florida, I don't live in Palm Beach, I live in West Palm, but in Palm Beach, perhaps the wealthiest area in the country per square mile. There are 60 billionaires in Palm Beach, and a bunch of them eat dinner at Beach A. And a
Mm.
bunch of them have become friends with the general manager of that restaurant. And a bunch of them are Trump's biggest donors. Watch out, Mr. President. This is going to backfire. It's one
Oh
thing to
yeah.
deport him,
Yeah.
but this damn alligator Alcatraz, which treats people with despicable in incivility. What's the word I'm trying
Yeah.
to search for?
In humanity.
It's inhumane.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
taking this man who's never violated our laws, who has had a job for 20 years and has been befriended by legions of people in Palm Beach, Florida, and you're going to put him in a cement holding cell and let him and make him eat off the floor off a cardboard box? You must be kidding me. This is
Yeah.
not cool.
Right.
What are we
Right.
going to do? How do you get him the message?
That is a fine line to teeter on. You're given a mandate based on what you how you won the election on deportation, and it goes to your head like, okay, the people that voted for me once, everybody gone, type of thing. And that's not the case. And I recognize that's not the case, but I also recognize, like, those that came here illegally, and you're doing a great job, not not breaking any laws, you're not doing anything else, you kind of still are subjected to that, that you still broke the law coming into the country, regardless of what you've done after the fact. So I can see that it's a tricky conundrum to be in. Don't get me wrong, and there should be a path, like you mentioned. And I love your plan, the Gordon plan. I love that idea. That will absolutely work in this situation. Maybe this is something that will be pitched to Vice President Vance. If he's up for the nomination for president in 28, that he can implement that instead. He could be the champion.
Do you know Vance?
I do not actually.
Okay, good. Because I don't want you calling him up after this broadcast and saying,
I
"Hey, I got the Purham plan I
got
wanted
I got the
to
Pearl
talk to
plan
you
for you. I
about."
got some. Yeah, I got something
Sounds
for
an
you,
awful
sir.
lot like the Gordon plan.
Only thing I ask in return is that I be chief of DHS. No, I will stay far away from all of that. I promise you.
I'm
But
teasing you,
but I
Randy.
think I know, yeah, no. But I think that would be a great conversation to have with the potentially next coming administration, or I would say the nominees.
Well, I'm not giving up on this administration. I want Trump to be able to continue to flourish. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
save
absolutely.
Congress for the midterms. What do you think? I'm nervous. I'm worried.
Who I am too. Traditionally, for your audience here, traditionally Congress change hands every 2 years, regardless of what's going on with the president, or regardless of what's going on with the economy. It's just the way it is. It's just one of those things. But however, I will say these last 4 years, it did not change hands. So the House of Representatives stayed in Republican control. So we're seeing an anomaly politically speaking. But traditionally, I would just say on a grander scheme, they change hands. So with a very slim majority uh, that we have right now, I believe we're up by only 7 seats, if I'm not
Seven
mistaken, right now.
seats. That's right.
If
220 to
if
213.
Yes. So if we maintain that, and no one else resigns, but there's some more that's planning on resigning. So if we lose that, but with the redistricting by Texas, Ohio, Indiana rejected theirs. So if you with those seats in play, we could potentially see a net gain of, I would say, estimatedly a net gain of an additional 6 seats in total, just based on the demographics and populations of these voting areas, these voting districts. I can see Congress maybe retaining the House, but if they lose the House, they're going to lose it by a very slim margin. It's going to be maybe a 4 seat gain for the Democrats at best. That's how I see it. I don't see no wet wave. I don't see a blue wave. I see a trickle, and it may be a slight shift, just like we saw in 2022.
We have lived through many changes in the balance
Hmm.
of power,
Yeah.
and we're always very alarmed when it happens. And then, this great Constitution of ours and our forefathers set just the right balance in place. So no
Hmm.
one party can really come in and either
Yeah.
do a lot of good, nor can they do a lot of bad.
Right.
So we'll muddle through it if that happens. But
Hmm.
here's the thing that I'm most worried about. If we lose control of Congress, we lose control of the committees. And I
Yeah.
would almost
True.
be willing to bet a big Texas sized steak dinner at the restaurant of your choice that if we lose the House, that the first thing they do will be to impeach Donald Trump, and we'll start a whole bunch of investigations all over again, and it will
Hmm.
bring his agenda to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
So I
I agree.
believe that if someone who has the president's ear could ask him to meditate on how he could appear more Reagan esque, how he could, I think that he should submit all of his tweets to me before they go out. And I can tell him
Yeah.
this one's good. This one is really going to get you. This one's going to sting. And here's three different
Hmm.
ways you could say it. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for the death of Rob Reiner and his wife. They were American treasures. We didn't see eye to eye politically, but any violence, all violence must be
Hmm.
condemned in our
Yeah.
country. And my prayers are with his remaining family and friends.
Yeah. Perfect.
Simple, simple.
Perfect. Yeah.
Mr.
Yep.
President,
Absolutely.
call me, or you can email me, johngordontruth@gmail.com. I'll just wait for that email.
No, you're,
But
you're absolutely right, and the civility of it all, it should be to that extent, regardless of how much you probably secretly want them dead. You know, publicly, it's a Caesar-esque like moment. With
yeah,
Brutus, it's just like, hey, he was a great statesman. Sorry, I had to put a knife in his back, but let's move on. And so I'm there with you. He shouldn't have put that tweet out there, but he's President Trump.
he is. And, a lot of his base really likes to eat red meat, raw red
Hmm.
meat. And so
Yeah.
they go for that. But I think, we talk about America first. I think you got to
Hmm.
put America first. And that does not bring people together. That there's nothing um, conciliatory or community building in those kinds of acts. And frankly, that was my biggest complaint with Obama. When Obama got elected, I thought to myself, finally, racism is done over and behind us in this country. We have a new day, and we truly are going to live not only in the
Hmm.
spirit of Martin Luther King, but we are going to do exactly what he promised and what he advocated: judge a man by the character of his heart, not by the color of his skin. I was
Right.
like, our 50-year fight is over. And then
Hmm.
damned if Obama didn't try to appeal to his base every chance he got. And
Hmm.
it just drove a wedge deeper
Oh yeah.
and wider in our country than we had ever seen before, even since really the civil rights era, when we had real violence in our country and over that issue. And I was like, what an opportunity missed.
Yeah. I agree.
But Donald Trump has that opportunity right now. He got 20% of the black vote in America. Never
Hmm.
happened before. Isn't that right?
Never. Correct. You're right. Absolutely right. Never happened before, and probably won't ever happen again. To be honest, But then again,
So black people like him or they liked him. Now he's got a real opportunity to reach out. eh, You know, when I was younger and I worked for a big company, I worked hard, real hard. And I one of my shortcomings in life has been that I just don't suffer fools lightly. All right, I'm sorry, I don't. And so when somebody really hacks me off, they can trigger me, and then I'll say things or write things that I regret later. So
hmm
my
hmm
boss told me, he said, John, I have this method, this system that I use, and it's called the 24-hour cooling off drawer. And anytime I write an email or a letter that I think might be, maybe I'm doing it impulsively and with a bit
yep,
of
yep.
anger, I take that letter and I put it in the 24 cooling off drawer. And then the next day I pull it out and look at it and I change it. And I figure
Hmm.
out how to say the same thing without the sting. It was a valuable lesson. Trump's
Yes,
got to do that with
yes.
these tweets. And maybe it's only a 30-minute cooling off drawer or an hour cooling off drawer because he's dealing in real time with stuff that moves really fast. I get it. But you can't let your anger and impulsivity reign over your decision making.
True.
And I think you and I are in very good agreement on that.
Yes, I'm the same way.
You got a 24-hour cooling off drawer.
I do on certain things. Especially if I know it's going to possibly wreck a relationship, then
Yes.
I take that into consideration. But if it's just like you know, a retaliatory strike, I'll call it that. I don't care. I let it fly. But there's certain, I use the sermon. I use the
I,
sermon on when and how I use my cooling off period.
yeah. Well, it's a good practice in self-discipline. Randy, thank you so much for coming on today. I thoroughly have enjoyed our time as always.
Thank you for having me.
Let's keep in touch and keep working together to help save this great country. I got 2 grandchildren here right now. Came all the way from Los Angeles, California for Christmas. We are so excited and blessed to have them with us. I want them to have a free country to live in.
Absolutely, definitely, most definitely, John. Thank you for having me on. I truly appreciate it, and it was great talking to you and your audience today. And I look forward to being back.
Well, where can people find you?
Oh, they can find me on my show is Purham Associates. I stream all over, but you can follow me at RPURHAM, and you can go to my website rpurham.com, rpurham.com, and check out my shows. I used to air them on Mondays and Fridays only, but they became random because I'm managing campaigns and in politics, so I just don't have. So I just try to get it in when I can. So, but I got a show just about every week at least. So I appreciate you once again, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Well, you have a great CV and resume. You are a
Thank you.
veteran. You were in the Army. You've lived all over the country. I don't know whether you're running from the law or what, but you've gone from
Yeah, yeah.
Alaska to Texas and California, Alabama,
Yep.
and you are also
Maryland.
an author. You've written "Polarizing America," exactly what we've been talking about.
Yes, that's coming out in April.
And now you have your own political consulting organization, which is just awesome. And you've been a
Yes, sir.
candidate for public office.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Polarizing America will be hitting the store shelves in April.
I want an autographed copy, and I want you to come back on The Truth, and we'll talk about it, and we'll just blow that book up. You're going to get filthy rich.
I hope so. After taxes.
Merry Christmas, Randy Purham. Happy New Year. Wish you health, happiness, and prosperity.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Take care. God bless.